How far could you go if you run with the wind? And the chances you take are what give you wings, and you can fly.
Hello, everyone. We are pleased to be back again in our series on civility, continuing on with Kent Roberts, who is a longtime practitioner in the field with a great amount of hands-on experience, particularly related to civility and community. And Kent, our question for this segment is, what do you think is the biggest barrier to implementing civility best practices in workplaces?
Well, Lou, I think it's the lack of recognition of the importance of civil culture, the strength of a culture in which people feel like they are treated with dignity and respect, and they feel listened to, and so on. People don't understand the value of it. They think in many ways it's soft in different areas that they may not be good in themselves. A lot of your leaders inside communities and inside business organizations don't, they may feel that they're lacking in some of the soft skills, and those are areas they do not feel comfortable with. And they don't recognize the fact that civility is good, hard-nosed business, or it's just good, hard-nosed way of life in living in a civil society. So I think that number one, just the complete lack of understanding the importance. I really value your work there when it comes to your 30% solution and all the other things that can play a part in the importance of civility. And so that's my number one thing. And another thing too is that they don't want to open that door of having the civil dialogue and all the things that it takes to create a more civil culture, one that also people can be heard, and people will also listen. So you know that skill, and that's a level of skill level that needs to be, and especially in certain professions, it's needed much more than others. But at the community level, of course, it has to be done. But there's a perception that they lose control, or leaders lose control, when they open up the dialogue that builds the types of connectivity. Again, I'll use a word that I've used before. And so therefore they think that maybe they're not a strong leader by opening up the concept of civil discourse, which is the exact opposite. Strong leaders create a culture where they feel listened to by their leaders. And if people within the workplace feel valued, that they're listened to, they're more apt to listen. And so it's a two-way street, and you just build upon that, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And the other thing that I think that goes with this is not just the fact that some people may feel that they lose control, but they're not intentional about doing this. And I don't know how we can move to a culture within a community or a business without being more intentional. And you have to really design it, plan for it, do it, evaluate it, talk about the value of it, make sure that the people within the organization understand the value, and which all this stuff goes back to just learning for a civil culture and the importance thereof.
Wow, thank you. That's such good insight. And one of the things that you mentioned there that is so interesting to me, because as you've indicated, it seems contrary and should be obvious, but the idea that someone in leadership might hesitate to engage in a discussion of what civil discourse or what civility at work should look like. That's interesting to me. And what do you think about our society or leadership culture or sort of traditions and patterns in leadership? What would be the cause of that? Why would people think at any point in time that would make them seem weak, or that there's something that's of a greater priority than civility at work?
Well, I think we've been sent those messages somehow, that if you don't take control and you don't lead and charge up the hill, that you're weak. Now, here's something that's really important, and your question really brings it right truly into focus here. We've got to know what it is that we're doing. There's time to build and there's time to lead. If we're in crisis, or we need to make a decision, and the decision needs to be made now. And, Covey talks about that urgent, necessary, important, and urgent. And you got to try to stay out of that urgent box, because sometimes poor decisions are made. But when decisions have to be made, make them. Leadership, make them and move forward. But try not to be there very often. What you need to be in is the building and the capacity growth and development. If you can stay in capacity growth and development and the building part of that, you won't be in very many urgent situations. And when you're in building, that's when you do the civil discourse, and you do all the listening, and you build all the competency of your people, and you value them. This is where your innovation comes from. This is where a lot of the energy of your organization or community comes from. So know when you're building, and know when you just have to take control and lead. And when you're in building, which I hope that people are in most of the time, and they do it every day, that's the key. And then you can still take control when you have to, when you're on deadline and it's urgent, a call has to be made. You're the leader, make the call. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you. That's great. Um, I should make a comment here that if anyone who is listening to the clips has questions for Mr. Roberts, or about civility in general, if you're looking for tools or resources, you can please send an email to events@civilityexperts.com and put Kent Roberts in the subject line. And then we will do our best to put you in direct reach with Kent if appropriate, or to get you the supports and resources you need. I also want to mention that we have an ongoing series. We normally do 4 or 5 clips per session, and we're trying to post once a week. So there will be ongoing conversations about civility. Thank you.
The reason why each of us comes to this earth, and your actions will always speak louder than words, and you'll never know what you're capable of until you try.